My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life.
Dan, we meet with a lot of pre-retirees. They're coming in, they're starting to think about retirement. Some are even very close to retirement. And one major question we get all the time is how much do I need to be able to retire comfortably? Do you want to speak to that?
You're absolutely right. It's just a common question we get all the time is, you know, there's so much information out there in the world around us, and this kind of general planning question, and there's lots of general planning questions. How much do I need to retire is, of course, a very unique question. It's unique to you. It's how much do you need in order to be able to maintain quality of life, which is dependent on so many different planning factors like, do I still have debt? Do I want to do a lot of discretionary things like traveling or whatever in retirement? And yet people really desperately want these guidelines, these rules of thumb. And from a planning perspective, we just don't ever use rules of thumb. There is no like, hey, you need 80% of your pre retirement income in retirement. It's just, it doesn't work. And there used to be some very famous commercials not too long ago, not too many years ago, where they would show people walking around and they had their number, and it was their retirement number. And that number was almost always right around $1 million. And then we get people who would come in and they would say, do I need $1 million to retire? We called it the magic million, that people thought that they needed to retire. And in some cases, people need way more than that. In some cases, people can have dramatically less than that. It depends if you have a pension or other guaranteed retirement income streams. It depends how you spend, when you spend, all those different factors that go into it.
Yeah, you always say to our clients that retirement is a cash flow issue. And I think you are completely correct when you're saying you need to consider the pension and other resources that you have like that. Now, you know, you talked about noise and we see out there, oh, you need 2 million to retire. You need 1.6 million to retire. We have the custodians who have their calculators on their website saying, oh, it's a rainy day for you. What do you think about all of that?
Well, first off, your life is not a calculator. You are not a spreadsheet. And it's fine to put your budget items into a spreadsheet. It's really good to be intentional about, okay, when I retire, I'm going to envision this life, this quality of life that I want to have. And now you start to imagine with the time that you have, because we talk a lot about retirement. You have 7 days a week to spend money, where when you're working, maybe you don't have that much time to do a lot of other things. So if you plan to be active and do a lot of things, you might actually spend more in retirement than what you were spending pre-retirement. Now it's different for everybody, but we usually start, if somebody doesn't know for sure how much they need from a cash flow perspective, we usually start with what they make right now. And then we'll subtract off things that we know they're saving. Like if somebody is maxing out their Roth IRA, so they're doing $500 or $600 a month into their Roth IRA, we know that when they're retired, they're not going to fund their Roth IRA anymore. So we can take that type of line item and remove that from their cash flow. But then, of course, there are some items we have to add back in. A lot of people don't think about Medicare as actually being a cost that they have to pay. But for most people, at least budget item right now today, if you're 65 years old, you probably need to budget somewhere between $300 and $400 a month per person. So if you're married, you're talking, maybe $700 a month line item for health insurance that you traditionally either maybe had it through your employer, or, maybe you're not paying for that as a specific line item in your budget. So some things get dropped, some things get added back in. I don't want people to get caught up in like the very minutia, the details of, we don't care if you spend, $50 at Target on, whatever it happens to be. All we care about is, if I need $6,000 a month of net income in my pocket to do all the things I need to do. That's my housing, my utilities, my taxes, any insurances, my discretionary spending like travel or entertainment. When we add all those things up, I don't need to worry about, hey, my trips, I'm going to spend $150 on this instead of 200 on this. I care that over the course of the year, you're budgeting $12,000, which I would then break down to $1,000 a month in travel expenses. So don't get caught up in the details. Start to look more from a bigger picture and make sure you're not skimping. And now you take that net number, so let's say $6,000 a month net, and you now apply a factor to that for your taxes. Now in retirement, people don't pay as much in taxes. And a lot of times this confuses people. It's not necessarily because your income taxes are lower, although that might be the case for some people. It's because you're no longer paying payroll taxes. So Social Security and Medicare taxes that you pay through your employer is a significant hit for most Americans. In retirement, when I'm taking out of my retirement accounts, or I have a Social Security, or I have a pension, I'm not paying those payroll taxes. So for most people, if you're under, 125,000 or so of gross income as a married couple, you're going to be in the 12% federal tax bracket. Then you'll add in your state bracket. Here in Minnesota, we have a pretty high state income tax. But of course, if it's Florida or, other states with no income tax, you don't have to worry about that. But you apply that factor to your 6,000 net, and now you have a gross number. So in Minnesota, that might be like 7,200 or something. Now is your gross number per month. Some months you're going to spend 7,500, some months you're going to spend 6,500. It's just the nature of how spending works, but you just have a number that works for you. Then now we know what you need from a cash flow perspective. Now we start putting the resources together in order to generate that amount of cash flow on a consistent, sustainable basis. And it's that goal that drives the asset allocation advice. It drives all of your actions. So it's not the things outside of your control, like elections or future assumptions of rates of return. It's not the market. I had somebody come in just recently and they said, we were looking at retiring now and we feel like we're in good shape, but the market isn't very good. And I'm like, a well-constructed plan, the market doesn't matter. It's your cash flow. And that's what matters. And in their case, it was very easy to show them that even their guaranteed income sources were enough to provide the bulk of their need. And, it worked. And then they no longer have to worry about the things outside of their control.
You just provided so much great information. I do have a question. A lot of my clients, none of my clients are actually in retirement yet, but you do see people that are actually in retirement now. Are there any common issues that you see come up once people are actually in retirement? Any things that they have not considered, or any common threads that you see?
Oh, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of them that I could come up with, but just, a lot of people who watch this probably don't realize we don't exactly prepare for this a whole lot. We just talk off the cuff because we do planning and advice for people all day, every day. This is just what we do. So it's easy to talk about it. But as far as, I've helped thousands of households over the years, I've helped hundreds of them retire. And in most cases, our retirement plans work very well. But there are a handful of things that I'll see consistently. Number one is if somebody really, really, really wants to retire, like that, they desperately want to leave their job. What they will have a tendency to do is estimate their expenses as low as possible. And that allows us to look at their overall situation, go, oh yeah, you look like you're in great shape. Then they retire and they realize, oh, I didn't budget for when my car needs tires. I didn't budget for when my furnace breaks down. I didn't do anything for travel or other things that are important to them. And they realize, oh, I said $6,000 a month net, but I'm spending $8,000 a month net, but I'm already retired. Now what do I do? And those, we don't have many of those meetings because we try really hard up front to make sure they're realistic in their assessment. But when that happens, that's a very awkward and uncomfortable conversation because we can't sugarcoat that. You
Yeah.
can't fail in retirement. That is a catastrophic planning failure. And so we want to make sure that that number is a very realistic number for exactly how you want to maintain quality of life. Now, another one is Social Security. So people have these preconceived notions like, hey, Social Security is going to run out, or I'm going to wait as long as I can and allow it to get as big as possible. But in many cases, they'll come in and they'll say, well, you told me to wait on maybe one of my Social Securities. Like if it's a married couple, we want to wait on the bigger of the two, and that's for survivor purposes. But they'll come back in and they'll go, why am I taking out of my IRA? Shouldn't I be taking Social Security? My friends, my family, people I know are telling me you're crazy for waiting. And they don't realize they need a reminder from us that it's not just because Social Security has a very attractive growth rate by waiting, it's the survivor benefit. So when one of you passes away, again, I'm talking to a married couple. This is much simpler for a single individual, but for a married couple, when one of you passes away, the surviving spouse keeps the bigger of the two Social Securities. We want to make sure your plan works, not just if both of you are healthy and live a long time in retirement, but what if one of you passes away? We need to make sure that other person is okay. And so we're thinking about all of those different elements. And so many people are just kind of looking at just one puzzle piece, like just Social Security. I want to take it right now. They're not thinking about the ramifications on other things. Another one, this is the third one, is people with substantial IRAs. So you've done a great job of saving for retirement. A lot of people, they've been great savers. They can't stand spending their money in retirement.
Mhm.
So they want their IRA to just sit there because they want it to get bigger and bigger and bigger, but they're no longer saving anymore because they're retired. They have a hesitancy to use that money. So the first thing is we want them to use that money to maintain quality of life. Of course, if they need it, we're not just telling them to take it out for no reason.
Right.
And then what happens is it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they hit 73 and they have to take required minimum distributions. And they go, oh my goodness, I had no idea. If I have $2 million in my IRA, I got to take out like 70 some odd $1,000 a year in required minimum distributions. And that number gets bigger every year. And they go, I wasn't spending it in the first place. Now what do I do? So they
Yeah.
create this like tax bomb because they were trying to do the right thing by waiting so that they didn't run out of money. And yet at the same time, they were maybe minimizing quality of life and not thinking longer term. So we see these types of oversights all the time in retirement.
Well, I think everything you said goes back to looking at the big picture, blocking out noise, and just knowing that your financial plan is unique to you. Anything else you want to add before we close out?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we talk a lot about putting together puzzle pieces. And retirement is a big puzzle. It's got a lot of pieces. The picture can be kind of murky and it's hard to put those puzzle pieces together. And that's why so many people, including many advisors, just look at one puzzle piece. And
Mhm.
then they make a decision that seems like it makes sense, but not in the context of the big picture. And that's
Yeah.
where a really good advisor has the experience and understanding to see all of those puzzle pieces and recognize how they fit together, and where those potential pitfalls are.
Well, thank you for providing so much quality information for a question that is paramount to a lot of people. I hope this is helpful to our viewers. And until next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.